It's hard to say where my competitive drive comes from. They say the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, and I can see some of this trait in my dad, but more than anything, I can see that I've passed it on to some of my kids. One in particular. I didn't really notice it until he was in kindergarten. His teacher had this golden apple that she'd place on the corner of a student's desk as a reward for good behavior. And for my son, it was simple, but yet an unquestionably important competition. If the apple was on his desk, he had won. If it wasn't, he had lost. He would be the most polite student, would never speak out of turn, would be kind and share whenever he was asked. And he developed a reputation of doing everything his teacher said without question because it was the only way of ensuring that that special apple would be on his desk every single day. At the end of the year, his kindergarten teacher invited all the parents to the end of the year ceremony where she was going to be handing out awards to every child. Most of the kids got awards based on historical figures or fictional characters that they'd read about that year. But when my son's turn came, his teacher announced that his award was a little bit different from the others. It wasn't based on someone they had learned about. In fact, it wasn't an award that they had ever given out before. His dedication all year long had earned him the inaugural Golden Apple Award, and that clear moment of victory set him on a very determined path. The following year, at the awards ceremony for the first graders, there were just 3 awards, one for PE, music, and art. And my son got the PE award, which is great. A year later, at the awards ceremony for second graders, my son won the music and art awards, which was interesting because I'd never noticed that he was interested in either of those subjects. When we were driving home, I asked him, when was it that you decided you wanted to win those 2 awards? He said, at last year's awards assembly. Without a word to any of us, this little second grader had spent a year going after the 2 achievements that had been set before him. Year after year, I watched him compete. And no matter how many failures or second place trophies he accumulated, he kept on pushing. The most important achievement was always the next one. And when the time came to leave for college, he was bursting at the prospect of new challenges. When he got there, he didn't just throw himself obsessively into each class. He applied for the most exclusive student clubs, joined a dozen more groups, signed up for a myriad of intramural sports, and sifted through as many potential friends as humanly possible. He was like this Energizer bunny hopped up on caffeine. And everything appeared to be working out perfectly. Within a month, he had been selected by every group he had applied for. He'd met phenomenal friends. He was getting all of his class assignments turned in weeks ahead of time. In his mind, it was all working. A few months later, he was climbing the ladder of the student organizations that he was a part of. He had 2 on-campus jobs. He'd figured out a way to graduate with triple majors and triple minors. And at no point did he think he was taking on too much. He just assumed he was working harder and smarter than everybody around him. And he was convinced he had cracked college, and that feeling was euphoric. And then, just a few months into the spring semester of his sophomore year, he could barely drag himself out of bed. Darkness seemed to swallow him. Anxiety dragged him into incredibly dark places. When he speaks of that time, he says that apathy and hopelessness barely scratched the surface of the emptiness he felt. And worst of all was that there was nothing he could think to change about his life. He had pursued and created the most perfect life he could have imagined, and yet he was totally unhappy. Clearly, it was all the result of an overloaded life. Every day was filled to the brim, not just with his schedule, but with his expectations. So he began to strip his life down, and he decided to quit a number of things and just focus on the groups and the extracurriculars that were altruistic, the ones where he felt he would be able to leave a real impact with the work he was doing. He realized that his successes and his achievements in life needed to be more than just self-serving. And this new approach revived his passions for life. It filled him again with a clear purpose. And with just 2 years of college left, he was going to make sure that he left his mark on the fabric of that community. He was going to listen better, care deeper, and serve as many people as he possibly could before time ran out. I watched him pour his heart and soul into service. And then I watched him realize that no matter what he did, he couldn't get the needle to move all the way up, marking the significant change that he so wanted to see. He discovered he wasn't able to achieve the kind of systemic change that the world desperately needed. He had simplified his life to a singular goal, a core purpose and motivation, but it still was not enough. Even in his most altruistic moments, he felt he had come up short. This led him to ask himself some questions. Questions like, who am I when I'm separated from all the things I've done? What is my worth apart from my resume, apart from my social circle, apart from my athletic prowess, my appearance, my wealth, my home, my lifestyle, apart from all the good I have done? Who am I apart from all the things that I have fought for, that I've earned on my own? Who am I without all of that? Who am I uncoupled from my accomplishments? No matter what he accomplished, there was always someone who did it better or quicker or sooner. There was always another level, a higher grade, a better score. For all the good he could do in the world, there would always be more that should be done. He discovered that you can pursue every avenue of meaning, fulfillment, and purpose imaginable, win at it, and still remain unhappy. The bar could always be raised a little bit higher, just out of reach.